Hi, I'm Kimberly Allison from Starliner Music. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to continue with my series entitled Blues Solos with Comping. In these exercises, we go back and forth from lead guitar to rhythm guitar accompaniment, also known as comping. We do this within the span of a 12-bar blues. First, I'll perform Blues Solo with Comping in the key of A number 8, and then I'll break it down for you. Here we go. I hope you enjoy it. All right, let's break down Blues Solo with Comping in the key of A, number 8. In these exercises, we go back and forth from lead guitar to rhythm guitar accompaniment, also known as comping. So we'll play a lick, and then we'll play some comping, and then another lick and comping, and continue through our 12-bar form. So I've divided the 12 bars into 3 parts, and we'll be breaking them down shortly. I'm going to start out with the scales that we're going to use for this example, and we'll be using the A major and minor pentatonic. So let's start with the major pentatonic scale, A major pentatonic. And for those of you who know the caged system, this is the G form. So what I'm talking about is the scale that sits over this octave pattern. So that is a G-shaped octave pattern and caged. And so I'm talking about the scale pattern that looks like this. So starting at the root A. So that's A major pentatonic. We'll also be using the A minor pentatonic, and this is also in the G form. So again, my A's or the octave pattern would look like this. That's for those of you who know caged. And the pattern starting on the root A would be like this. So that's the A minor pentatonic. Now that we've covered the scales, let's go on to part 1. Here's part 1. So I'm going to start with the pickup lick, and a pickup lick leads into the first full measure of a piece of music. So we're really starting before the first official measure, and we're going to play a major pentatonic lick. Now this major pentatonic lick starts on the note E. E happens to be a chord tone of an A7th chord. It is the 5th, and many of you know that I like to begin or end on chord tones when I'm coming up with the lick. So I'm starting on E and I'm going up the major pentatonic scale. And then I'm going to go into the minor pentatonic scale here with a bit of an approach slide into the note C. So that's in my minor pentatonic, and then I'm back into the major pentatonic. And I have a hammer-on pull-off here. Lick one more time. And then I go over to the comping. So the comping uses a 3-note dominant chord, meaning this is just enough to suggest A7th. It's the flatted 7, the 3rd, and the 5th of an A7. It also happens to be a C-sharp diminished chord. Not going to get into the theory on that, but you can just think of it as a 3-note dominant. So we have the 3-note dominant A7, and then I'm going to have a quick visit here to a D triad. Now, I'm not really changing to a D chord. This is more like an embellishment of the A harmony, or sort of like a suspension. So we have, then we're going to go right back to this. However, I'm going to spice this up a little bit with a hammer into the A7. So I'm going And by doing this, I hear a little bit of that C natural, that minor third underneath my bar finger, and that makes it sound a little bit bluesy because blues tonality tends to use elements of both major and minor. So I'm hammering on into my 3-note dominant, going to the quick D chord, and back to the 3-note dominant. So let's put that together. And here's my response to this first phrase, and it's sort of, question and answer, call and response. I'm going to start with a half step bend, and again, bending into the minor pentatonic. So that's my C note again, and then down the major pentatonic. And then coming down to that E note, my chord tone of A7. And then I'm going to go right back to my comping, same comping as before. Let's put all of part 1 together. On to part 2. Here's part 2. So part 2 is a lead-in to this D7th chord. That's our 4 chord in the key of A. So I'm anticipating the chord, which means to play it a little bit early, ahead of the bar, and I'm starting on a chord tone of D7. That is the 3rd F sharp. That's my 2nd fret here on the high E string. Now I'm coming down the major pentatonic. I have the note E, and then instead of using C sharp, I'm actually going to use the C natural under my pinky here because C natural is part of my D7 chord, so it sounds better here. It's a chord tone. And then I'm going to continue down the major pentatonic. So, and now I'm going to move my comping up to D7. So I'm going to simply move the same pattern up to the 10th fret, and I have an abbreviated D7th chord here with the hammer. Then I'm going to make a quick visit to now a G triad, and then back to the D7. And I'm going to answer that phrase with this, starting on F sharp, going up the major pentatonic, and then I'm going to use the C natural again from the minor pentatonic. Ending the phrase on G natural, which is in my minor pentatonic. It is also the 7 of my A7, so that provides a certain sense of finality for the phrase to end on that chord tone. And then I go back to my A7th comping. Let's put part 2 together. On to part 3. Here's part 3. So part 3 starts off with a pull off, and I'm pulling off from the note B. Now, the note B is part of an E7th chord, and since I'm targeting or previewing an E7th harmony here, the B note makes sense because it's a chord tone. So it's the 5th of E7, I'm headed towards E7, and I do this lick twice, or this idea twice, pull off, and then I go back and come down the scale and end up on the note E. And that note E times out right with the arrival of the E7th chord. So I land right on the root when the E chord happens. And then I jump over to the 7th fret for comping. Now, many of you already know this E9th voicing. Hopefully is somewhat familiar. But I've actually made this easier. So I'm just using the top 3 notes of that, and we're going to walk that down chromatically to imply the motion between E9th and D9th. So 5 chord, walking it down chromatically to the 4 chord D9. And then I go back to my lead guitar, and I'm going to start this idea on the root A, and I'm going to use the open A because it's convenient. And the idea uses mostly major pentatonic. However, because I'm targeting the D chord, I'm going to be using a C natural in this line because C natural is part of the D7th chord, whereas the note in the major pentatonic C sharp is not, and so the C natural would sound better here. So starting on the root A and using the C natural here. So then we'll jump over to a double stop turnaround, and the double stop turnaround starts on the note A and G. So these are chord tones of A7, and we're going to keep the open A droning throughout the turnaround while we walk down the note on the D string chromatically. So we start on the root and the 7 of the chord, and then we keep the A going, walking this down chromatically until we end up on E and A, and this is like an A power chord or an A5. So we have chromaticism, and the tension is useful here, but it provides a sense of resolution when we arrive at the chord tone at the other end of the chromatic run. And so we end up on A5 there. Now I am giving this a palm mute because it seems to be ringing a lot if I don't, so it just kind of cleans it up a little bit. Then I'm going to approach an E7th chord, at least the root of the E7 chord E, chromatically from my open D string, and I'm going to end up on the note E here. Now this is the root of an E7th chord. Instead of playing a big full E7 like this, or this, I'm actually playing this and then just the top part of an E7 chord. So I've got the 1st fret and the 3rd fret and then the open E string. So I've approached the root here on the D string, and then I play the top 3 strings, and I go over at this point then and play an A9th chord. And this is kind of an interesting voicing if you don't know it. If you take like a basic A7 like this, like here's A and then you add the 7, that's G. You can also add the 9th of that chord in by putting your ring finger over here on B, and I'm going to let the open A ring for my low root, and that is an A9th chord, and that's my last chord. So now let's put part 3 together. That's it for Blues Solo with comping in the key of A, number 8. I'm Kimberly Allison from Starliner Music, and I hope to see you back on my channel soon.